Hello everyone, welcome to Leftist Nerd Reacts. Today we're doing Black Clover Book Club Part 2, or rather, the second arc, which, spoilers in advance, I was actually a really big fan of. I'll get more into this later, and to be honest, today's plot recap won't be too much. There won't be too much plot recap today, partially because the plot's really simple. A part of the issue that I had with the first arc, which wasn't really a problem, which I think the first arc is a introductory arc. I think the first arc is Shonen Jump's first try at Black Clover, a way that the audience could get used to the story. The first arc, chapters 1 through 10, they rather tell 2 or 3 stories just kind of put together, as opposed to this arc, which is a cohesive story just through and through, which I found to be a really enjoyable experience. Today we're going to be talking about chapters 11 through 21, exploring the dungeon arc, or the dungeon arc. And again, yeah, the plot recap today isn't too heavy. We'll just cover some light stuff. It's pretty simple, but let's spend a lot of time more on our thoughts, feelings, and like the kind of call out points, and let's get into it. For this arc specifically, the plot was pretty straightforward. Effectively, a dungeon has spawned. It made me think of solo leveling with the gates, but a dungeon has spawned at the edge of the Black Clover Kingdom, in between the Black Clover Kingdom and the Diamond Kingdom, a rival territory that is trying to expand its borders and skirmishing with the Clover Kingdom, and has in the past. No shocker, medieval Europe style, countries fighting, blah blah blah. The Wizard King sends Asta, by name, by choice specifically, into the dungeon, and then he's accompanied by Noelle and Lucky, who, if I'm being honest, I had to double check 2 or 3 times because I kept forgetting their name, and I kept thinking that I was just misreading stuff, or I must have been confused, because Lucky did apply in some of the speech in ways that isn't necessarily super clear as his name. I like the cleverness of the Wizard King here by choosing Asta to go, because it shows what he reflected on after Asta saved his gambling winnings as he was transfigured into an old lady, and it shows that the Wizard King was paying attention to Asta, and it wasn't just fluff. We get a payoff almost immediately. After Asta saved his winnings in the previous arc when he was transfigured as the old lady, he immediately calls it out that Asta is someone who is interesting, and we see the resolution of that call out here in having him call Asta specifically to the dungeon. It also does show a particular level of cleverness on the Wizard King in that they know the dungeon is full of traps. Again, this is literally a JRPG raid. This is a raid level. A portal has opened. Go get your Pokemon Go allies. Take care of Arceus. So having Asta who can negate magic should be able to deal with any magic traps, making the dungeon pretty easy. At the same time, he sends another team, the Golden Dawn team, with your boy. I got his name wrong a lot the last video, I'm so sorry. Yuno, not Yonu. If you know, you know. I just gotta do it for my New Yorkers. Shout out. But Yuno, not Yonu, Yuno. Klaus, the Shit Eater #1, and probably one of the best names I've heard in this entire series so far, and really one of the best names I've heard in a while. Mimosa Vermillion. Such a good name. It's imprinted right there in my mind. Absolutely ridiculously good name. Turns out Mimosa is really familiar with Noelle. They're also royals, and Klaus himself is a royal who is the worst version of Ida. He is a paladin with a stick way too far up his ass. I really disliked him. And we get some subtle hinting that, yeah, I mean, we've known this already, that the royals themselves, who are born closer to the center of the kingdom, which I'm convinced there's like a meteor or some kind of like radius effective magic, who knows, maybe it's the grave of something or a meteor, but it's literally concentric circles. So come on, let's put the pieces together. But nobility that's born closer to the center already has stronger magic by nature, so of course the Golden Dawn is just chock full of nobles. They cross paths in the dungeon after one of my favorite scenes so far, where they're trying to name the bird that Asta has. Asta gives him a kind of shitty name, Noelle gives him a ridiculously shitty name, and then Lucky gives him the best name, Nero. If you look at my notes, which are available only to patrons, but if you look at my notes as I was taking them live, I literally said he should have a 1-word name. It should be simple but funny and cute and have all these elements, and then Nero was the next page I read after that, or even might have been the next panel. So great. It was so satisfying to see that. I said this before, but Nero's basically my MVP of the series, unless he turns out to be like a Sakuna level asshole. He's a great bird. While they're going through the dungeon, dungeon, and actually right before they meet the Golden Dawn, Lucky senses some mana, dips out, tough guy somewhere else. The Golden Dawn, which I thought is what Lucky was sensing, pulls up, they basically exchange some words, and then they decide to have a race to see who can get to the treasure first and determine kind of like value and blah blah blah. What I think is kind of bullshit here though is that Mimosa has really interesting magic, but it's plant magic, and that's kind of cap. It has nothing to do with plants. It's plant themed, they're plant generated, leaves and shit are around her plants, but like her mapping out the whole dungeon, later on we see her heal herself and wear like a whole healing robe, like I guess aloe vera and healing herbs, and I guess maybe the vines helped her plot out the dungeon, but like it's pretty cap. It just feels like plant magic, and then you just do whatever, and as long as plants can be attached to it, it works. Suffice it to say, they go off in their own directions. While this is going on, Lucky runs into, shocker, the Diamond Kingdom has sent in their own squad to explore the dungeon. He beats a bunch of the jobbers, then fights Lotus of the Abyss. While this is happening, the Golden Dawn's just kind of breezing through the dungeon. Asta and Noelle having a hard time. Asta and Noelle make it through, and then they actually, rather than go straight to the end, decide to meet up with Lucky and rescue him, and Asta rescues Lucky from Lotus of the Abyss, who was just about to wreck shit entirely. They then fight Lotus of the Abyss together. I think the fight was actually really clever. I actually really like Lotus also. He gives me Matthew McConaughey, grungy beach dad vibes. He's hairy, he's laid back, he's vaguely hippie coded, he has like a goatee and he's always rubbing his chin. He's like very chill and relaxed, and he's kind of funny. I like the vibe. It's sweaty in a good way. That being said, after they beat Lotus of the Abyss, he just fucks off entirely. They decide to run up and get to the treasure hall ASAP. Come to find out, Lotus of the Abyss wasn't the only one, and it wasn't just full of jobbers. There was someone else that followed in the Diamond Clan. There was someone else that went with the Diamond Clan, a guy named Mars, and Mars has been pinning down the Golden Dawn this whole time, wrecking absolute shit. Dawn is basically Sai from Naruto. I know I keep using Naruto as a reference point. It is one of the most influential manga and anime series of all time, and definitely of the last 20 years. So sorry, it is a good reference point for virtually every anime and manga fan, and I'll keep using it when contextually appropriate. I just want to call this out now because I feel like I'm going to be doing that a lot, and I just want to do it now, and I probably will do it again later. Just a quick asterisk. But yeah, Mars is basically Sai. We find out later in this arc that he is a child soldier who grew up in basically Root. He had a sibling he was deeply attached to. When they come time to graduate, they have to kill each other. Last one standing is the winner. It's the obvious goo thing that anime has recently been in love with the last few years. And if you don't know, and I might be pronouncing it wrong, goo is this ancient Chinese like poison method where you basically stick a bunch of very poisonous animals in a pot. They all kill each other, and then the last one surviving is supposed to be like the most extra poison. And honestly, I'm butchering it, but that's the gist, right? Very deadly things all together. Last one standing, deadliest one. Mars survives. That being said, Mars is someone who is reclusive, emotionless, or at least we think so in the beginning, shut off, and is just ruthlessly efficient. He is using mineral-based magic, gem-based magic, and just wrecking shit on the Golden Dawn crew. He takes Mimosa out pretty much immediately, then pins down Klaus, and Klaus is getting his shit kicked in. And then Yuno comes in and eventually also gets his shit kicked in, but much less than Klaus does. As he's about to kill Yuno, or seemingly kill Yuno, the Black Bulls come after just beating Lotus and begin the fight. Asta saving Yuno, resetting the counter from favor back in 1 point towards Asta. So Yuno owes Asta again. They have this really epic fight. There's a lot of clashing. Mars is just pulling out the woodwork just non-stop. He's doing mineral shadow clones. He's swinging out giant swords. He has like this gigantic piece of armor. He's doing a whole bunch of shit, just going super crazy. Asta and him are fighting, and Asta basically uses his magic negation ability to just constantly eat, like have Mars eat shit, go through all his stuff, beat his ass. Mars gets knocked out. Klaus seals him up into the weakest possible, most obviously shitty Iron Maiden ever, a metal straitjacket, and says the fateful line of, "Oh, he could never escape. He's done for." Right. Once they take care of Mars, they get into the treasure hall. It's fucking like that scene from either Raiders of the Lost Ark, if you remember, or Aladdin, or Desolation of Smog. I might be getting that title wrong, but it's just a huge ass treasure room full of a bunch of shit. Everyone's looking around, kind of pillaging a little bit of thievery in the grave robbing territory. Yuno comes across a freaky deaky scroll that's glowing, doesn't understand the text, Boop, boop, boop. I fucking heard Zelda music when he did this. It was an RPG moment. You got the text, new skill unlocked. What does it mean? He doesn't know. The scroll goes blank. His grimoire gets added pages with unknown text he can't read. While this is happening, Nero, shout out to the bird, drags Asta and really guides him to like this weird circle on the wall and is trying to get him to pay attention to it. To no one's absolute surprise, Mars wakes up while Asta's away from the crew, pops off, and is using fire healing magic. This is where we get the lore dump that magicians and wizards really only have a chakra nature, one magic nature, an elemental basically center, and you might have derivatives. So you might have stuff that's like a plant or smoke, but smoke is itself a derivative of wind, kind of in between wind and fire, but you can only have one magic nature. So you might be really good with smoke magic and you could use wind magic, but you can't necessarily use ice or earth or fire or something more rare. You're really stuck to that category. This is where we as the audience get the backstory about Mars and and the whole sibling thing, and you see his Frankenstein fucked up looking grimoire, which is partly from his siblings, and they gave him a transfusion more or less. He has a diamond crusted up in his motherfucking dome, and that diamond is a basically enhancement, and all of those things considered, the patchwork grimoire, the test, the diamond, all of that culminates into Mars being able to heal himself with fire, use fire healing magic, and at the same time use really offensive and defensive mineral based attacks. What's interesting is this is basically just the second round of the boss fight. It's like, great, you got the first HP bar out the way, here's the checkpoint, make sure you save, get your MP up, go to the little Kingdom Hearts floating dude, convert all your coins into mana and everything else, XP, upgrade your skills, level 2 of the boss fight. Like, spot on, picture perfect. Now Mars is healed and fresh mostly, and again wrecking ass. He has pinned down Yuno, he has pinned down Klaus, and he has pinned down Lucky. They're all trapped in mineral, they're all trying to get to the grimoire, they're all trying to get this because he is actively trying to kill both Noelle and Mimosa. Asta comes out at the last minute, some superhero ship, hits it with the sword, blocks the attack, and now it's really just Asta versus Mars 1v1 style. Like all asshole video game bosses, Mars decides to now use his ultimate moves. He's in like this super titan form, completely crusted in minerals, and now he's using ranged attacks against Asta that are almost too fast for him to deflect. Asta gets knocked back, he's fucked up on what to do. Then Nero lands on his sword on the hilt, the sword changes, it gets cleaner, it gets skinnier. We start seeing these crosses on the sword, and Asta's like, okay, I guess I'll use this sword now. The sword originally was just really heavy and clunky. It looked again like the Dragon Slayer from Berserk, just a big piece of metal, a big piece of iron. Now it's a bit more shapely like a proper sword. Asta and Mars go back and forth. Asta's still getting his kind of shit kicked in, even though the sword's a bit lighter, a bit faster, and then it glows once Noelle gives him encouragement, and he can now use a basically water-based range slash. Now I have some thoughts here. I think that this maybe is a sword that obviously he's being able to use water magic because of Noelle. I think that this means that either A, he can take magic from those in the surrounding area and then use it, which makes sense because if he can negate magic, maybe his is a special field, AoE, sponge type of effect, and now he's going from just taking or canceling it out to reusing. Or maybe he is a blank Scrabble piece and those around him can give him buffs that they may not be able to by moral, spiritual support, who knows. But Asta does a slash with the water. It's basically a Zoro move, shout out to 300-pound cannon or tiger hunt. He does a tiger hunt, basically onigiri, and then the slash itself has the same anti-magic negating abilities, which Mars wasn't expecting. Completely wrecks Mars's ass, cancels out the fire magic. Now he's just basically stuck with minerals. While this happened, he actually got a blow in on Asta. Asta's down for the count. Mars gets up and is about to do a massive blow again. In the meantime, Yuno just barely got free and unleashes his leveled up move. This is what I mean by JRPG. Yuno's move needed a 5-round limit to cool off. Like it feels it, right? Like it just feels so perfect. He took some time. He uses the move at the last second. A literal fairy wakes up from nothingness, blinks and is like, oh, that guy, bam, and just completely destroys Mars, just knocks him the fuck out. And then as we fast forward to the end here, the dungeon starts collapsing, they haul ass out of there. Asta is alluded to having a really strong constitution because the damage he took, Mimosa wasn't able to fully heal, or at least had a really difficult time healing, but somehow Asta's still mostly fine, which hint hint at something we're foreshadowing towards later. They leave Mars behind, but then you realize even though Asta objected, they had to leave Mars behind because they just didn't have the time to take him. And then come to find out, Lotus of the Abyss in his swagged out smoke car picked up Mars along with all the jobbers while everything was going on. They were invisible, getting all this stuff, and then they just dipped the fuck out of there. All in all, pretty short, simple, explainable arc. Now, my personal thoughts and feelings, I love this arc. I actually thought it was really enjoyable, and you know, I'm happy that it's so early on. I was worried with the first arc that it was kind of not all over the place, but again, it's just 10 chapters. There are really 2-3 storylines going on. You could certainly argue that chapters 1 through 3 are the Magic Knight entrance exam. You have the debut chapter, then you have him basically passing the exams and joining the Black Bulls. Then you have the rest of the 10 chapters, which is him fighting Heath, Grisha, and all his ice dudes, then going to the black market. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess his first few days on the job is an arc, but it didn't really feel super connected, as it more felt rushed. This felt proper. And again, I know that the first 10 were likely collected either because they were published together, because that's Shonen Jump's initial 10 run, maybe that's the physical volume count, I'm not sure, but chapters 11 through 21 are actually really, really enjoyable. I found myself having to remember to sit down, take a note, and take notes per chapter, which again, if you want to join the Patreon, you will get this video 2-3 days before and my basically live ramblings on a note per chapter. They are the closest I can get to live streaming each chapter as I read without taking 3,000 years to read this series. So if you want just crazy ramblings, make sure to check out patreon.com/leftistnerdreacts. It is also in the link down below in the description. That being said, let's get back to the main thoughts and feelings part. No, this arc was great. I mean, this arc was fun. Again, I am shocked no one told me how funny Black Clover is. Black Clover is really funny. It does have me laughing really consistently. It is something I find so enjoyable. Lotus of the Abyss makes me think of sweaty Matthew McConaughey, but brunette. And that kind of beach bum, dirty vibe is so good. It's hilarious. Even when he gets his arm broken, he's still like this cool guy, and it's fantastic. I make a lot of smoke about Nero, but Nero's also really great. He is a hilarious little creature. Whatever Asta figures out how to fuse with him or talk to him or share their souls or whatever, I hope he sticks around because he's just really fucking funny. And again, most of the series is really funny. A lot of the visual gags, a lot of the small stuff, it works out well. This arc was for me a good mix of action, a small bit of lore that we needed, and then honestly really satisfying shonen stuff that, you know, if I order a chimichurri steak sandwich, I don't want a West Coast Californian version of that with ranch and avocado sauce. No, I want a chimichurri steak sandwich. I want what I order. And that's what I feel like is happening with Black Clover in this arc. I want a shonen story with wizards doing wizardy stuff, and that is exactly where we hone in on magic, lore, comedy, interesting characters. And personally, I felt really satisfied seeing someone like Klaus eat shit. It was great. He should eat more shit. He sucks. And him turning around and being like, damn, Asta and Yuno rock. Yeah, Yuno's great. Everyone loves him. Fuck that. Eat shit. Asta's great. I'm really bought into Asta as his underdog because again, nobility sucks, real world and fate, and it's nice to see nobility take a fucking knee. So yeah, my initial thoughts was I was just really hyped. There are other thoughts I took during the chapter notes that I do want to call out. William Von Jontz is just Orochimaru, or whatever the fuck, insert evil guy here. Maybe Littlefinger, who knows? Clearly he is a villain. He is just so villain coded, it's unbelievable. And I think he wants Yuno's body. Like, he just, everything he does feels so villain coded. Additionally, the Golden Dawn sigil, yes, they're the guys who set up Heath, Grisha. I think chapter 13 or 14 made that super duper obvious when the guy who's on the Golden Dawn team literally goes and is like, why'd you send the newbie? And he's like, eh. And there's a panel in there where you see the same kind of Golden Dawn, the sun over the horizon with the two hills looking over the village, which I mentioned this in the description of the first video. It might be a reference to, and it's also in my chapter notes, it might be a reference to Akets, an ancient Egyptian symbol. We already got a Sephiroth immediately shown on the wall, so it wouldn't shock me if Tabata and his crew are now also drawing using similarly ancient occult runic inspirations and sprinkling them throughout. If you're unfamiliar, an Aket is basically, it's also a term for a change of the seasons in Egypt, but it's an ancient Egyptian symbol of a sun rising between two hills. It can mean the horizon. It often is a sign of change or sign of a new dawn, a golden dawn, if you will. Yes, we get it. But yeah, I mean, it's so villain coded. It's crazy. The Wizard King seems like an interesting guy. For some reason, I think he's going to be around for a lot of the series. I have no reason to think that other than, I don't know, he just seems real chill. And those kind of chill dudes make me think of Kakashi, and I don't watch Bleach or read Bleach, but Urahara? Or rather, I'm lying, I used to watch Bleach, but I think Urahara, the guy with the bucket hat. A couple other things in the chapter that I thought were really good. I love Asta's transformation of the sword. I said this in the first literal video. Will he get a ranged attack? Yes. Now, whether this ranged attack is contingent on him having someone in his crew, in his party, if you will, his raiding party. I'm just saying, you're not beating the Square Enix allegations. If it's contingent on him having someone in his party to use the range slash or not, that is up for question. I do wonder, we do see Asta's grimoire change, or at least it implies a change because there's a panel that specifically focuses on it. But I am curious if this is a slash he can just now do and was enhanced, if this is a slash he can actively think about, or if he can turn it on and off, or if this is a conditional thing that he just happened to meet the conditions. I say that because the sword glowed, and that's not something he's normally done before, and it's not something that normally happens. Additionally, the sword on its own just kind of went into the book, so I don't know if that was an upgrade thing or a one-time deal until we see it again. But I am happy to see him have a ranged attack. I do hope in the future he has an AoE anti-magic like bubble, like JJK, a simple domain or a domain expansion. If you step into the space, you lose all your magic. Now it's just you and me. Now it's fisticuffs. I don't know. I'm excited for Asta's growth. I'm surprised we got there so early. I figured he'd have a ranged attack by chapter 100, not by chapter like 19. So enjoyable. I'm really digging it. It feels like Tabata is just feeding us that. That being said, another really good moment for me in this arc was seeing the volume extras, I think in chapter 16 or 17, where we find out, or at least I find out, that Tabata was mentored along with the creator of Beelzebub, one of my favorite comedy series. It made so much sense right away. I instantly got the humor. Beelzebub for me is one of those series that I genuinely laughed out loud reading and also enjoyed, and I think is really underrated. Even though it got to have its full series run, at least here in the West, there's not even an official English dub out for it. You have to watch the fan dub or just sub, which I know isn't a marker of quality or a marker of popularity necessarily, but the fact that you have this series that was printed in full and is genuinely hilarious and full of action and heart and all this stuff, it deserves a lot more attention than it's gotten. And yeah, them being sibling mangakas, super awesome to find out. It clicked immediately. I love that so much. It was a nice little surprise. This arc was really enjoyable. I love the fantasy element of the dungeon. I love the inclusion of the traps. I love the inclusion of the loot, the rewards. I love the inclusion of the next kingdom, because the map basically just kind of faded out after the concentric circle. There was a nobility area, then there's a common area, then there's the outskirts, and then nothing. And I was like, this can't be the whole map. And immediately we get the Diamond Kingdom. Great. So now we know there are at least multiple factions of wizards and people, and I'm sure there's going to be multiple versions of lore and history that we're contending with. I am excited. This arc is what I wanted to see in the beginning of a good shonen series. Something that gives me what I want and then also builds and teases towards something else. We know Asta is going to grow and become stronger, but it's nice to see that so quickly, to see that conviction, to see the potential. I do have questions like, what the fuck was that circle that Asta was on the wall looking at, that Nero wanted him to point to? What was so special about that dungeon? Why on the border of the Diamond Kingdom? What's gonna happen to Mars? I am genuinely curious and excited to read the rest of the series. In fact, I've been rushing to record this video because I just want to jump right into it. The next arc I know is only 16 chapters, and I want to get into it already. I'm excited for the rest of the series, and I'm actually really happy. You know, sometimes it takes a bit of a buy-in, and as a longtime manga and comic book reader, I am used to spending 20, 25, sometimes even the case of 50 chapters before I really get into the groove of a series. For me, One Piece was a pretty initial instant one, so was Naruto. Hunter x Hunter took me to like chapter 12 or something. In a lot of other series, there was a bit of a delay. is not uncommon for a series that's especially weekly to find their footing as they go on, but I'm so happy to see Black Clover almost immediately land that step, and it feels like the gears are turning. Some other stuff I just want to call out in this arc that I just don't have too many thoughts on, but I do take notes on, but I don't have too many thoughts on. Lucky, the cheery berserker, great name. Nice to know he is that brawlic. It's not just like the text implying. They straight up say he would have been recruited by every team if he didn't have a little sociopath in him, which is kind of resolved immediately. Pretty cool. I like Noelle and Mimosa's engagement. It's nice to see a little bit more how shitty nobles are. That's also nice. It's nice to see that they repaid the favor to each other, and she kind of like, you know, they rib at each other a little bit. It's kind of bitchy, but in the same way that it's nice between friends who've known each other for a while, and ultimately it is good-hearted by the end. It's nice to see Lotus the Abyss, who I think is actually more sinister than the cheery appearance gives off. I think he's actually a bit of a bad dude. I love him so far. I hope I'm wrong. Again, Matthew McConaughey beach vibes, but the way he treated Mars at the end, there's something about the dialogue that I just felt was weird, but it was nice to see Mars look out and see the sky. I do hope better for him. He's clearly an abused kid who is just stuck in the position he's in, and I hope, like Sai, he gets out of that. I hope Asta and the crew get a fucking ton of stars from the Wizard King, give him like 10. They did a whole bunch of shit, but knowing this series, I'm willing to bet that there's probably some stuff that's gonna be like, oh, you get like a 1 and you better be lucky because you lost a dungeon, blah blah blah. Typical shonen affair, but I'm curious. I'm just taking a guess. I hope they do get a lot of stars. I hope they do get acknowledged for not only beating someone really tough twice, but working together as a team and clearing this dungeon themselves. It's worth it. It was a really good move. And yeah, I hope that Nero, he better get a little Black Bull's cloak. That's all the fuck I know. He better get one. That being said, it's just been rambling. I've been really loving this arc. It's a lot to chew on, but it was a lot of action also, and a lot of character interaction, which was just nice. I'm excited to see the lore of this world and how it all pieces together. Again, there are some glaringly obvious questions. Right now in this section, we're going to be covering some of my favorite manga panels and manga pages from this arc, and then after that, I have some book club questions that are actually more substantive this time. The first were just like generic because that's what we got to go with. This time I think we got a bit more meaty stuff. Here's just a compilation of some of my favorite panels. Honestly, for most of them, the real thing that makes them my favorite is Tabata and his crew have an insanely beautiful art style, details, interesting geography, there's interesting composition of the panels, the scenery is great, the character dynamics are great. There's a lot of stuff that is technically very competent. Some of my favorite callouts here are what I call the MC Escher room with all the doors. It just is absolutely beautiful. The perspective feels twisted and wonky, and it does a really good job of communicating that. And in addition, one of my other favorites is really Matthew McConaughey Slay, Lotus of the Abyss, the just a smash. Black Clover is so much funnier than anyone's told me, and between that and the panel where he's just like, well, I was about to do it, it's just really good. There's a lot of hype stuff like the fairy that we find out later named Sylph. Yes, I'm in the next arc already. I couldn't wait. But yeah, these panels are just some of my favorite. I'd love to understand what some of yours are, but these for me, and there are so many good ones, it's really hard to pick. Like anything that Mimosa was doing was also absolutely gorgeous. A lot of these panels are really interesting, really well drawn, so it is tough for me every time to sit down and go right. And some of them are just hype, like Asta's 3-arm swing thing. It just is hype. Or his big brawlic beefy bicep boy. Yeah, it's hype. One criticism I do have, not enough Nero. We do get Nero on the sword, which is cool, but not enough Nero. We need more Nero. Some questions I had in mind that I'd like to share with you, and again, please feel free to write these in the comments, or if you're using this as a book club, some questions you could ask them to kind of spark the dialogue. Do you think Mars is evil or villainous? I personally don't think so. I think of him like Sai. I have seen this character so often in anime, manga, etc., and they usually have a turn of heart after the second or third time they get their ass beat because they are just prideful, fucked up, abused children who really need someone to show them that they care and love, and then they move on. Do you think Lotus of the Abyss is a bigger threat than he's shown? Do you think that he is someone who has malicious intent or is more malicious than is being led on? I think yes also. There's something about him that just feels fishy. Why do you think the Wizard King sent in 2 groups into the dungeon? You could certainly argue it's for the benefit of the mission to make sure it's successful, but I find that disingenuous in the sense that I just don't see how that really makes sense. If that's the case, why not send in 3 squads or bigger squads to that same end? Do you, and this is a spoiler for what I think, do you think the Wizard King is smoking out the Golden Dawn? Sub question to that, do you think William Von Jounce is the villain or villainous, or rather rather, are there any characters that you suspect to have hidden motivations on our team, on our side, that we have met so far? What do you think Yuno's ability was? I personally think it's a Jin. There's a panel earlier where he like rubs a pot and like a little light comes out and it's like a throwaway, and then he gets the scroll. I think the throwaway might have been a hint. It felt like he summoned a wish. It might just literally be wish, the D&D move or the miracle or whatever. But I think he literally wished for, like, the fairy came out, did the thing. I don't think he'll be able to do that frequently. I don't think he'll be able to do that often, but I do think it is a clutch move that if you wait 5 turns, let your MP build up with an HP of under 20%, critical move. But who knows? What the hell do you think is going on with Asta's sword? For me personally, I think it's damaged from some past grimoire user and that he's fixing it. It looks like the rust and the damage to his book that's clearly fucked up is being repaired, healed over time. Maybe, and this is a stretch, the more magic he negates, the more he absorbs. Maybe because he is an empty vessel of no magic, he can not only use the sword, but maybe is a translator, a piece, a bridge, an absorber of magic. Yeah, those are some of the questions I had now. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining the book club. I'm really excited. I'm going to jump right into the next arc already. I already have it loaded up on my phone. Do all the things. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you want to see these videos earlier, patrons will get this on Friday, as well as the chapter notes that I am taking. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will be watching this Sunday. So if you want early access, if you want to support a small creator who will be doing, as we gain more subscribers in a more steady base, live streams from weekly manga reactions, chapter reviews, there are theory videos in the works, as well as just some shit posts, vines, and shorts. We're making a lot of content here. So if you want to hop on board, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. It certainly helps. It doesn't hurt. And if you can spare a few bucks, please make sure to check out the Patreon and join. That is where we'll be doing polls, Q&As, and live streams for not only future series, but ongoing weekly series where we will show the screen, read the manga together, maybe watch anime together, who knows. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope to be seeing you soon.